Okay, now that we've been accustomed to this concept of to account for and accounted for, what I want to do is move into process costing. So what process costing is dealing with production instead of, in contrast to job order costing, where you have identifiable units. This would be something where you could see something like where a company's processing water or oil or ice cream or something where you're making this more in batches, and it's not really easy to determine individualized units, or you're not making this in particular for an individualized customer. You're just making it in a whole process. So the idea here is that we are going to go through a five-step process where we are actually going to help us determine the movement of cost. And another feature here that we have is that although we have our raw materials accounts, now we might have a work in process one, or A, work in process two, and so on before you get to a finished goods account. And so that's the other thing to consider, is that we are going to be going through the same sort of process that we had done before, but now we are going to be having to deal with potentially multiple work in process accounts. To start, we're going to be going through and looking at the first department, but then we have to realize where we are going, because the second department is going to be receiving costs from the first department. So when we zero in on work in process, the concept of work in process one, we're going to be receiving costs from materials that from the production, from the raw materials account. And so what we need to do is we need to figure out, okay, well, how much or how far in the process are we in terms of figuring out how many physical units that we have. So we go through this five-step process. Step one is analyze the physical flow of production. So when we consider this, we want to see, okay, well, how many, from a physical standpoint. So this is, in other words, this is dealing with units. And so we'll be having the whole units to account for and units accounted for contemplation here. So when we deal with the work in process account, then we would be, when we're looking at units to account for, we're going to have, of course, the units from the beginning work in process inventory. And then the concept that we're going to be dealing with here now is how many units were started into production this period. And so this would be then our units to account for. When we look at our units accounted for, similarly, we have our ending work in process that we had contemplated before. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have units that are completed and transferred out to the next department, or finished goods in the case of the final department. And so then this would be our units accounted for. So we would, of course, we'll be getting into this completed and transferred out. We would use CT, I'll find it now, and O. It will be the acronym that we'll use for that.